I'm Mary Polchernoff, and welcome to Sure Things. You'll notice the format of our show today is a bit different than our usual format. Today, I'm coming to you from my dining room. As many of you, I'm working from home, and our guest today will also be coming in from her home base as well. We're in the middle of a very difficult and challenging time dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. And many people are facing difficulties that perhaps they hadn't imagined they'd be in before. It's very interesting today that I have my guest because we actually spoke about coming on the show before any of this happened, way back when we could get in the car and go where we wanted to go. I spoke with Amy Hollis about coming onto the show so she could share with us the information about the mission of her work, the resources available for the community, and what each of us could do to also help. So I want to say welcome, Amy. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on, Mary. It is great to see you. It's a different way than we might have expected, but it is wonderful to be able to connect in this way.
I am so glad you're here. Amy is Executive Director of Shoreline Soup Kitchens and Pantries. So we're very excited to have her here to tell us about her mission and to tell us where it's at right now. It's very different, Amy, isn't that correct?
It's different in a lot of ways, and yet the heart of our mission is so basic and so simple that we're continuing it. Our mission is to provide food and fellowship. More people are in need, so we're continuing to provide food. It's an overwhelming process right now. There's so many more are in need.
I am just so interested in getting into that too, of talking about your background and the mission's background and how that's in fact changed as we've been into this situation. And perhaps looking ahead to how this situation might change the way you do things in the future. So let's just start, if you could tell us a bit about the organization and then a bit about your part in it, because I know we spoke earlier and you've been in the organization for quite a while.
Yes, so the Shoreline Soup Kitchens and Pantries was founded 31 years ago as the Shoreline Soup Cellar, and it was created from one day of vision at Essex, First Baptist Church of Essex. They were having a day to determine how they could be the church in the community and what needs they might be able to address if they were able to just dream and vision. And they decided that one of the ways that they could help was to provide food, even though they were hearing messages that no one was hungry. There was not a need. That was just the messages they were hearing, that no one was in need. Of course, that wasn't the case. And that was brought to their eyes and shared with one another as they said, there's this couple who were eating in the dumpster. There was certainly a need of people 31 years ago who needed food in our communities, and they continue to. So that mission has expanded. Oh, go ahead, Mary.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's so interesting on what you're saying now because I can relate to that, Amy. Before I got involved, with my neighbor, we talked about some of the organizations and the help that's going on to help the hunger and the hungry in Westbrook. I would have thought we didn't have any.
Yes.
That there wasn't anything. I didn't even know what food insecurity was at that time.
That's right. And it's grown from that point 31 years ago to the organization it is today, where we provide approximately 1 million meals annually through 5 pantries and 9 meal sites in an 11-town region. As you talk about, you don't know the numbers, and it's about 30% of our community are what is called ALICE and in poverty as well. ALICE is what we used to know as working poor, asset limited, income constrained employed, people who are working but just can't make ends meet. And that's about almost a third of our population base. So the needs are great.
Yeah. I can't even imagine if you're talking about somebody, living on the edge, an Alice worker, say somebody who is working paycheck to paycheck, like so many people are. And then you hit a bump in the road, say an illness or what we're in now where you might have lost your job or be furloughed. I can imagine that puts you right into a whole different category.
That's right. Yeah. And we're seeing first-time guests to our pantries. And it's such an overwhelming process that individuals are facing today with job loss, with food insecurity, with not knowing what happened to their pensions and retirement, the whole gamut of people who are exposed and impacted by the COVID-19. And it's, our neighbors. Yes. It's people in our communities. It's people across the country. It's people across the world who are dealing with food insecurity maybe for the first time in their lives.
And how would you define that, Amy? I'm sorry for cutting it.
Oh,
How would you define that food insecurity? What would your definition be of that?
I think my definition is evolving because I don't think I envisioned a time where it would be so hard to go to the grocery store and find what we needed, right? Food insecure used to, in my eyes, were individuals who didn't have the resources to purchase the food. But today it is that the food may not even be available of the food that you might want to find. So a lot of us may be feeling food insecure. Even if we have the resources to purchase the food, we may not be able to find what we need, or we're dealing with health issues that make it almost impossible to go to the store to get groceries. So we may be feeling more food insecure. Yeah. So, there's all those different emotions that tie into the reality of whether we are, by any specific standard and measurements, food insecure, or whether we just feel that we don't have enough.
I can see that certainly when you talk about that perception and that feeling given today's environment. You mentioned that the Shoreline Soup Kitchens covers, did you say 11 areas?
11 towns.
11 towns. So where do you go from? Are you down in New Haven, or are you just where do you start? What is that section?
Great question. So from Madison along the shoreline to East Lyme, and then up to Killingworth and Chester on the north edge. Lyme, Old Lyme, Westbrook, Essex, Deep River, Killingworth, Clinton, Old Saybrook.
Yeah. So that's quite a range.
It is.
Did you mention 9 sites then for those 11? Yeah.
We have 5 pantries that are still up and running with curbside delivery. So people drive up, they get their groceries outside, they're pre-bagged for them just because of the logistics of what we need to do right now with social distancing. And then we've had to temporarily suspend our 9 meal sites. So generally through the year, we usually have a meal at least every day of the week. Some days we have 2 meals a day. They are all in host church sites of faith communities that open their doors. They provide a meal and people come and eat together. And that's where we started 31 years ago in Essex. They said, let's make a meal and invite everyone to come. People came and ate. So it's that food and fellowship that go hand in hand. And so those meals are on hold right now. And we've put our energy to where we can do the social distancing and still get the groceries out, which is our 5 pantries.
So given that people were getting to those meal sites, I know they were also very active before this all happened. What if those people cannot get to where you're giving out the groceries? Is there any way that how do those people get that food then that would have normally gone and had a nice warm meal in an evening?
So people who were able to go to our meal sites were also able to get to our pantries. Because if you were able to get out to one, you were likely to be able to get out to the others. There is a challenge with individuals who are homebound, who cannot get out to get to even the pantry. And they are relying on neighbors and the kindness of friends. There are some people who are picking up for someone else. We also are in partnership with a lot of different organizations from the estuary and Meals on Wheels who are providing meals. Meals on Wheels is still functioning. It's not an SSKP function, but it's a partnership. We're all doing the same work, trying to provide food for individuals. And so it is that heart of making sure we check in on our neighbors to find out, what do you need? Asking, can I pick up something? So that we're hoping that people are not food insecure, that they do feel that sense of security because they can get fed. There is food available.
So you are saying then that if there was somebody for some reason who couldn't get to the pantry, that perhaps they could do that phone call for Meals on Wheels and get hooked up that way, or some other way to get transportation to get there. Because I could see that there might be people that for some reason just can't get there.
That's right. And there are individuals who have friends drive them to the pantries each week. There's a combination of ways we try to help one another. And people call and we try to put together resources, and 9-Town Transit is still functioning. There are resources still available.
And so 9-Town Transit could be an option as well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Excellent. So what I'm wondering too now is with what's happening now, how much of an increase in demand do you see? Do you have any data for that on how much of an increase there is?
Yes, we are not able to track exactly the same data that we had prior because of social distancing, but we do have great information on how many family units are coming week to week. So
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask, what does that look like? Yeah.
So our family units in the past month have increased 40%. So right now we are providing bags of groceries to individuals who come, whether it's a family of one or a family of six. Whoever that is, they are given a bag of groceries. We don't have all the statistics of how many people there were in every family at every site. Some do, some don't. It really depends on the logistics of whether that pantry site is serving 80 people or a pantry that's serving 240 family units on a given day. There's just different data we are able to collect. But so family units have gone up 40% in the past month. And we were able to provide 27,000 pounds of food last week.
27,000 pounds of food last week.
Last week alone, and 26 the week prior. So it's a lot of food.
That's a lot of food. And, you know, we are seeing on the news those lines of cars when, you know, in other states when these sites open up and families need to drive in those cars and wait in those long lines. I'm wondering, what about the supply chain for your organization with this 40% increase? How does that work? How are you sure, and how are you ensuring that you're getting the materials you need?
And another excellent question. We receive, in general, the food in 3 different areas. We receive food from the food banks, both from Connecticut Food Bank and Gemma Moran, which is on the other side of the Connecticut River. By that I mean on the east side. I'm currently on the west side of the Connecticut River. So there are 2 food banks that help supply our pantries. Last year it was about 42% of our food came from those sources, from the food banks. Another 27%, I think that came from food drives and donations. Those items are not coming in at the levels they had been because we cannot do food drives officially today because we have a stay-at-home order in this state. We cannot encourage people to go out to the grocery store and do food drives because we're supposed to be staying at home if all possible. So we have less coming in from food drives, and that's the situation that we're in, and that's okay. We encourage everyone to stay home as best they can. And then we do have the capacity to purchase food as we need it to supplement. And about 25% of what we provide and that we provided last year came from purchased goods that we were able to purchase because of the generous donations from our wider community and community partners and all those things. So we are continuing to be able to purchase. There's less available to purchase. The things we might have wanted to purchase may not be available. If you've been to the grocery store or purchasing online for home delivery, you know this to be the case. You cannot always find what you might have wanted to find, but there is food available. Yes. You have to supplement from this vegetable to this vegetable, and getting canned whatever it is or frozen vegetables is just not available right now. So you modify, and you're creative in what you find. And so we are very grateful for the support that enables us to say we have less coming to us from donations, less availability from the food bank even. So we are able to purchase to meet the needs as best we can.
That is wonderful. When you have these sites where people can drive up and get their package of groceries, which is just awesome, how many days a week are those sites open? Is it a 3-day-a-week thing? How often are they open?
So the 5 sites are each open 1 day during the week. So on Tuesday, we have 2 pantries that are open, both in Westbrook and Old Saybrook. Then on Wednesday, our Clinton site is open. On Thursday evening, our East Lyme site is open. And on Saturday morning, our Old Lyme site is open. So 4 days a week, there is a pantry open that provides groceries. So hopefully everyone is able to go to one if they need to.
And then how are you doing with volunteers for those sites? Are you able to staff those to pack the bags and to be there to actually hand those out to families?
We are, and part of that is because we cannot work with the number of volunteers we might like to. With social distancing, we cannot use 60 volunteers at a time on a site. You just cannot provide the 6 to 10 feet distance between individuals. So we are working with very small crews of like 6 or 7 people at a time at each of our sites. And you can imagine the amount of the poundage. 27,000 pounds was moved last week through our pantries with only a handful of volunteers. Those volunteers are, I think, building some very strong muscles, and they are staying very healthy, and they are doing a fabulous job. So we do have volunteers. We have more who would like to volunteer, and our volunteer coordinator, Jeff Ward, is keeping a list of people who are willing to step in as needed. And it's amazing how much is able to get done. And we are hopeful those volunteers stay with us and are willing to help as we get hopefully back into normal procedures in the coming however long that is.
I know that firsthand because I also did reach out to Jeff, and he did tell me that, and that's because I'm so interested in. I'm just in a small community here in Westbrook, and I have several neighbors that are very involved when the soup kitchen's up and going, in meeting and doing the cooking and doing the serving when you have your sites, and it's awesome. I've only been able to help out a few times, but I've been really been very rewarded to be part of that, which has been wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Well, I know I'm going to ask the impossible question too, which it's really obvious, but any idea when any of the meal sites might be open?
We don't know, and that's not something we can decide. We will probably not be the first thing that reopens in the state of Connecticut that gets back into normal function. It will probably start slowly in terms of our meal sites. I would envision that it is likely that our meal sites will begin with meals to go when we start back into this, but we won't know yet. But our volunteer coordinator, Jeff Ward, who is coordinates the meal sites, is on top and making plans for how we will get back into that process.
Amy, when you talk about the meals to go, and again, I know firsthand from some of my neighbors all the work that goes into when you have the meal site open and they're cooking for everyone. Do the local establishments, the restaurants, and some of the food service places, do they at all contribute or have part of any of this process?
Absolutely. It varies business to business, but some of our restaurants are very, very involved. Some of them have their own meal team. And I don't want to call out which ones, but a number of our local businesses do communicate, because I don't want to call them out because there's just so many I might miss.
Right.
Because we have something like 80 different meal teams throughout the year. So some volunteer once a year and some volunteer once a month. So it's
yeah. Well, I'm scared. Sorry, with the restaurants closed, have they contributed? I just wonder, is that another source that the pantry can get food with restaurants closed, saying, hey, maybe we have this type of surplus, can we donate it?
Yes, there's a Facebook story right now that one of our local pizza places donated pizza and sauce to one of our pantries to give out to guests. So these are ongoing relationships. People are being incredibly generous to find ways that they can support our neighbors and our friends who are in need. It's overwhelming the ways that people are trying to reach out and say, hey, how can I help? Here's something I have. I can help. I can give this.
I have to say that I've noticed such a feeling of community. It's so difficult and it's overwhelming for everyone to go through this, but the sense of community and those small things that people are doing to help each other really just add to the whole feeling that we'll get through this.
Yes.
Yeah, which is amazing. So you really became executive director, and then we had a pandemic, it seems.
Yes, that did happen.
So you had a challenge right away, but it sounds like it's going amazingly well given all the barriers, and I guess I'd say the problem solving that has to happen, because people are finding ways, but it is problem solving at this point. Yeah.
Yes, the first week that this was rolling out, I would email my pantry managers and say, we might be moving toward bagging groceries, please order bags. And the next day, we are going to bag groceries. I hope we're doing this. I tried to give them a heads up, and then it turned into, 24 hours of heads up. But we're trying to stay on top of it as best we can. The changes were coming very quickly, and now there aren't as many changes. We're hopefully moving into a stability, and yet we don't know the long-term implications of our neighbors who are in need, right? We're talking about the Alice population, individuals who lost one paycheck, two paychecks, three paychecks. This is going to have a long-term implication on our communities. So how do we do what we do best, which is to make sure our neighbors have access to food and fellowship? There are all sorts of other ways we need to support our neighbors, but at the basic needs, providing food is something we can all understand, and we can all make sure no one is going hungry.
And then just a basic question too, for those that might be in this position that they've never faced before. To go up and get a bag of groceries, do I need to fill out a paper, give a name, qualify in any way?
So normal function, we would ask our guests to be registered once a year, and there's paperwork to fill out. There are no barriers for how much you make or anything else. Anyone can come to the pantry without question, as long as you're willing to fill out the paperwork and show that you are a part of, you live in the 11 towns. At this point, we're not doing that paperwork. We just can't, with social distancing, do that. And we are simply providing food for everyone who comes to our pantries. You drive up, you're provided groceries. You may get asked how many people are in your family. You may be asked your name so that that can be written down, but there is no qualification of whether you're in need or not. If you are able to come and you say you're in need, you will be fed.
Oh, Amy, thank you. What an amazing mission and resource you are, the whole organization for our community. All the time, as I said, we were going to get together before this, but even during this really difficult time that we're all facing. Now, you have a website and a Facebook page. Is that what I understand? Yeah.
We have a website. We have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is updated quite often these days. But both of those are great resources. The website now has a listing on the homepage of where all our pantries are and what hours they are open. We are also accepting donations of non-perishable items to those sites. We're not able to do food drives, as I said, but if people are out, they can also drop them off at the food pantry if they find themselves having extra. We don't want to encourage people to give what they need for their own supply. Yeah. But if people have the capacity to give, they can, and obviously donations help. But this is just ongoing. This is not just going to be solved today. People have been hungry. This is 31 years we've been feeding people with the Shoreline Soup Kitchens and Pantries, and unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be not necessary next week. Yeah. It'd be great.
Yeah, it would be great, right?
Great.
Well, Amy, I want to thank you again for coming on Shore Things and sharing your message and helping us all feel better, knowing that, again, there's community resources to help us all. So thank you. And I want to thank everybody else for tuning in today to Shore Things, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.